turn that down a little bit. Okay, so we didn't do a vodcast last week, but then we kind of snuck a vodcast in because we went over some new mods last weekend, and they were pretty damn cool. They've been cool all week, honestly. They haven't stopped being cool. There is something very visceral about ripping packs to get at your hero cards. Yeah, but I do think that people, it's harder to keep track of the hero cards when they're in your when they're in a hand like that. I did come up with a way to do macros to access your hand quickly, which is better than whatever's going on with that mod. But anyways, what we got going on next weekend is everybody's meeting up in person. And when we meet up in person, we actually have, ideally, everyone that is a part of some of our games. So if all goes well, we'll have everybody from Kingmaker. We'll have everybody from Skyhaven. I have to ask, will you have everybody from... no, because you won't have Red, right? You won't have everybody from Strength of Thousands.
No.
Okay. You got everybody.
We talked about it.
You got everybody from CyberPunk. You do a CyberPunk game.
So I do want to try running an in-person Daggerheart thing.
Yeah. A Daggerheart thing or a CyberPunk thing?
Why not both?
I mean, I can get some more tables, I guess. I got them reserved for two spots on Saturday. I got the table reserved for 2 spots on Saturday, but I'll get some more tables. We'll get some more tables together. Assuming the weather's nice, we play outside.
We played Icespire, Dragon of Icespire Peak while we were there.
Yeah.
With using the minis from what you call it?
Kingdom Death. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely excited about doing it. We left off in a good place on Thursday night where they are they have 2 airships now, and they're getting ready to set sail on their airships. So I mean, nothing finer than that for an in-person session, right? Than having some airship action. So debating, what to do, because I feel like when you don't play in person there, and then you finally get a chance to, there is certainly some temptation to adjust what you're running to be a little more scripted and a little less organic, because it's special. You know what I mean? It's special. You don't just want to be like, well, it's fantasy shopping episode in person. That's just how the timing was. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is. Yeah. So, which you could do if you were in a spot in the adventure that just wouldn't translate well to trying to play in person. You could always do a side quest. You could always do like a backstory adventure, side quest adventure. That kind of thing. You could do a xenologue, as Fire Emblem likes to call it, where it's like an alternate timeline story. Yeah, alternate timeline storyline. Prologue is a flashback. So you got a lot of cool things you could do.
For Mythic, it would have been all those Adventures of Orin.
Oh, absolutely.
He was off by himself.
Yeah. It does make me think that, like, I do like the fact that we're going to run some games in person. I like running games in person. My local gaming group, we try to get together at least once a month to play Kingdom Death, just because there's something different. There's just a different energy about getting together in person, being in the room, seeing each other's faces, being completely engaged, right? Being completely engaged with what's going on. It's just a different experience. Seeing people trying not to laugh, you see that across the table. You try not to laugh, then everybody's laughing. You don't know why you're laughing. Things are funnier. I don't know. Like, it's just something about it. It's just something about playing in person that anybody that plays in person that spends the whole time on their phone not paying attention, that person's spoiled. All right, that person plays too much in-person D&D if they're getting bored. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, what an opportunity, especially post-pandemic with everything, everyone working all the time, busy all the time. So getting together to actually play in person is such a treat. So I am looking forward to it. But I guess what we're going to talk about in this shorter than normal vodcast is what's different, right? Like, what do you run in-person games sometimes?
Yeah. So
So what's
But
different about it for you? Like,
so I will say my only experience running games in person is that I ran the beginner's box for my coworkers at work,
mhm.
and now recently I'm about to run the quick start adventure in Daggerheart for my coworkers at work.
Okay.
And we had our first session actually Wednesday, in person for that, and it was just them making characters, and they are completely like they don't have any like experience with TTRPGs other than the beginner box they played that one time. So
wow.
it's a lot of teaching,
Mhm.
and like just explaining like, hey, you roll two dice and you add the dice together, and you got to add a number from your sheet, and like going through that stuff. So it's been really nice because they're like so new, like everything is so like, oh man, that's kind of cool, and like they'll read like a card and like the fancy characters, oh man, this person's a robot, I get to play a robot, like
I got you. Yeah.
simple stuff. So that it's been nice, but I would say the difference is that at least in terms of playing, there's like a like you give people their, like it's a lot easier to give people their space to like do to do their thing. Like I'll ask somebody, okay, what are they doing, and then everybody like turns to them and they're like, okay, what are they doing, and the person's like thinking, and like that happens in online, but I feel like people are more engaged in person because you can see them, and I guess maybe that's how it is if you had cameras on. I don't know.
So about the cameras thing, because my 4E group, we used to play online with Roll20, and we would use cameras, and it we definitely felt more connected than disembodied voices in chat for sure. Like definitely for sure. And there is there is VTube Studio, and then the DLC for VTube Studio that lets people like be in the same chat room together, and you can get for free like a VTube model now from just about anywhere. I mean, they just got piles of them on the internet. You just pick up for free. They got customizable ones for free. They got very cheap customizable ones you can get off of different sites, including Etsy. So like that's another kind of compromise, sort of like you want to see the other people at the table, right? You want to see some movement, some motion, some expression on the face. So like, yeah, I mean that's another thing. I did worry when I first started running games online that without cameras, right, that like it was going to be real hard to keep attention at the table. And to a certain extent, what, 6 years later, 6 or 7 years later of doing this, I think it still is. I think it's very challenging to keep people engaged. Yeah, I do think it's very challenging to keep people engaged.
But I also feel like it's like a different type of, because you have to do stuff to keep people engaged in person too. But what you got to do to keep people engaged in person feels different than what I got to do to keep people engaged online.
Yes, and here's the thing: in person, a raw charisma will carry you through everything. In person, I could show up for a game with. I've actually run games with no minis and one set of dice, no minis, no books, no pre-written adventure, no nothing. Like like when I used to do conventions a lot, you're waiting in a 2-hour line at a convention. I'd run a game if people wanted to play, like in line, like just using one set of dice that was in my pocket. Like, I'm not trying to sound like, like a baby boomer, and I'm like, I walked uphill both ways to play Dungeons and Dragons with dice I whittled out of my own bones. But like, I mean, it's possible. And you just have to be an engaging storyteller. Like, that's really in person, in my opinion, in person. If you are an engaging storyteller, if you know how to manage people, right? That's all you need. Online, you could have a voice as sexy as, like, I don't know, Idamara, right? And like, that's still not going to be enough to get people to be fully engaged. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why we use the maps, the animations, the animated dice, the cards, like anything and everything that could kind of bring attention back to the game, right? I don't think we're ever going to have the level of engagement again that we had during the Popcorn Initiative era. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we left Popcorn Initiative behind, and we're back to the same old crap, right? Where, like, a person's turn comes back around, and that motherfucker went downstairs to make a sandwich. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That guy's building another shelf. How many shelves can you build? Do you know what I'm saying? How many shelves can a man build, Dom, before every wall in his house is covered in shelves? And why does he always build shelves during Pathfinder? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to call anybody out.
Time.
I don't want to call anybody out, but I'm just saying that, like, without Popcorn Initiative,
it's not called Pathfinder. It's called Shelf Builder.
Right? Yeah. Without Popcorn Initiative, where you don't know when your turn's going to come up. You don't know when that initiative's going to get passed to you. People get lazy, man. They get lazy. You know what I'm saying? And like, I miss it. I do. And I thought it was very telling, my groups that were out and out, just like, no Popcorn Initiative. And then my players that were like, Popcorn Initiative is life. Popcorn Initiative is the best. Because it's a different type of mentality, a different type of play style, different type of engagement. You know what I mean? The people that like Popcorn Initiative, the people that are going to enjoy playing Daggerheart online, those are people that they are actively participating. You know what I mean? Like, there's no passive part of the experience for them. Like, they're there to play, like, as often as possible, as frequently as possible. They want those turns to come up. They want to have extra turns. They want to be doing stuff. They want to act out a turn. That, I think, helps, right? A system that is very dry and very, like, crunchy and very, like, turn-based, I think that is very hard to keep the attention of people through a long session. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, through a long session, versus in person, where I think you have all the same problems, but in person there's that accountability of, like, as long as you're the kind of person running the game that isn't afraid to call people out, you know what I'm saying? To call people's attention back to the game, to say, hey, I need you, you know, we're doing this right now, you know, like, it's not easy, but I think it's easier in person to keep that flow going and that attention on the game. Anyways, kind of rambling there, but that's how I feel about it. What about you? What did you notice running in person versus online and keeping that attention on the game?
Well, I think I might have like maybe a skewed view, because since I've only ever played in person with people who are not used to the game and are very, like, you know, need to ask questions a lot, and so I'm always answering questions, and people asking questions is showing that they're engaged, and so
fair enough,
And also, all my in-person sessions have always been like 2.5 hours. Like, it's never been a long stretch of time. So we're there for 2.5 hours, and then we're out. And so during those 2.5 hours, you know, nobody's fatigued after, like, you know, a time. So our in-person sessions are very short. Like, we get there, we're playing, we're eating snacks and stuff like that, and then, you know, we maybe not be getting that far into the story, but, you know, there's a lot of questions and stuff like that being asked, and because no one's getting fatigued, because we're only doing there for like that short amount of time, everybody's locked in the entire time pretty much. And when somebody is, and this is weird too, because in my coworker group, it's like 7 players. And maybe maybe we might lose somebody because they can't stay that day, or we gain somebody who's like here who can stay today, but, you know, wants to join and figure out how this is. So there's been times where I've had like 8, and not everybody gets a turn. And what I try and do is, like, you know, when people are like struggling on a turn because they're new, I'm helping them, trying to figure out what they can do. And at the same time, I'm like mentioning, like, okay, you could try and do this, and that might help set up this other person over here, so that other person also stays engaged while I'm helping this person figure out their turn. Because I'll ask them, like, you know, I'll ask questions about the other a person whose turn it's not their turn yet. I'll ask them questions about their character, so that the person who is their turn can probably get an idea of what they can probably do.
Gotcha.
To make sure that everybody stays in you know, engaged. I do like to, you know, because they're new and nobody's really like sort of into like the role playing part of stuff and like explaining what their characters does or being in character,
Mm.
a lot of times I'll try and engage people by asking them questions about that, so they can explain and do something sort of in character, explain something in character, or something like that. And then when that happens, everybody turns to them because they're gonna say, "Oh man, they're gonna try and role play. Like, I want to see what this is like,"
Mm-hmm.
And so and then other people get engaged because they see one of their. We're also all co-workers, and we all talk to each other on a daily basis. So, when they see somebody who's trying to role play for the first time, they're like, want to see how they do it, because they don't, when they got to do it, they're gonna want to see example.
All right, yeah. So you kind of have like an engagement from the newness of it, right? Versus like
So right now,
play,
and that's what I'm saying.
All the time, they're showing up for an in-person session in an age, right? Let's just be honest, in an age where people have kind of given up on investing the time and energy into face-to-face activities. Yeah. I mean, not to sound like super like depresso about it, right? But like, I think that's kind of where we're at. You know what I mean? Is like, especially after you try online D&D, right? Where it's like, I worked my ass off all day. I'm tired. I'll take a nap. I'll wake up just in time for the game. I'll eat my food and prepare my food while I'm listening to the intro to the game, while we're playing the game. I'm in my pajamas. I can play even if I'm not feeling good. I can play even if I'm really tired. I can play even if I look like a greasy hobo because the humidity here is like 250% or something. Like, it's fine, right? Like, and it's a different level of investment to like go to someone's house. You know what I mean? And then like, people, when they get together, what do they want to do? They want to eat and drink. So now you got to spend some money on food and drink that maybe you don't have or didn't feel like spending, or maybe you got dietary things that you don't want to eat the food that everybody else is eating. You're tired of eating pizza, and like there's just all of these concessions that you have to make because it is a in-person event that you've gotten into the habit of not having to do. Right. And so I do think that makes it a lot harder. Like I started this conversation off saying like, oh, if you've got like strong, if you got strong charisma score, running game in person, no problem, baby. Like you just bring them in. But like that's going off of my experience from before pandemic. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's going off of the first 25 years of running TTRPGs. I don't know what people are like anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Could I really effectively get a in-person D&D game together? I mean, Wes tried to do it for a little while. We were struggling. You know what I mean? We were struggling. Yeah. And we had to, kind of admit that a lot of it was just meeting up to have fun in person with each other, right? So it didn't have the same I guess investment of like energy and time that like a paid game online would have, right? Like we show up to play Curse of Strahd together. We know that the first 30 minutes are just going to be hanging out, getting some food, eating, right? Then we start playing. We maybe play for like 2 hours and then we're done. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like that's still a fun time. Do you know what I'm saying? But like at the same time, when you're used to getting online and playing for 3.5, 4 hours and making like gains, you know what I'm saying? Like in your campaign progress, in your character leveling and stuff like that, it's a different mindset. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Of like, So I don't know. I don't know where people are at on it anymore.
I will say though, like I don't know if I would ever want to run like Strength of Thousands in person, or like any like big game like that in person, because I feel like being the convenience of being online and being able to like go and make food, or what you were saying, like you don't have to get dressed up or anything like that for a 4-hour long session, which is like that's what you need to do for like games that are that long. You need to have those long sessions to make some progress. Yeah. And I feel like if for in-person games, at least for me, I think if I'm ever going to run games in person, it's going to be one of those like, maybe like an Outlaws Arkansas, something that's very like railroaded, right? Not railroaded, but like something that's more like beat to beat, scene to scene.
Okay. Because I was about to say, honestly, like an in-person game not restricted by dependency on maps is actually, to me, a better game to run full sandbox. You know,
So,
a game that doesn't require any physical prep is what, which is what I call like maps and tokens and stuff like that.
I guess I guess railroady is not the right word. What I mean is that it's more of a, like, there's no, like, we're dealing with like exploration and trying to do crunch mechanics.
Okay, yeah. So my friend Jim Shepard ran first edition Kingmaker in person. It took, I think it was like over 5 years. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Of in-person sessions. You know what I mean? And he told me it was the greatest experience of his entire life. He's the reason that I finally was like, fine, I'll try to run it. Because I really respect the guy and his opinion on games and game design and stuff like that. And if he says it's the best experience he ever had with TTRPGs, like, I want to be able to provide a similar experience for other people if that's possible. You know, I want to be a part of something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's huge, right? It's a huge game to try to run without your tools. Do you know what I mean? It's a huge game to try and keep morale up enough to be like, I know you're not feeling it, but I need you guys to come here in person because we're playing this game in person. I need you to keep doing that for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, that's intense. That's intense. Yeah. So I think I understand what you mean. It's not about the type of game. It's the commitment of the game. It feels
the commitment and the pacing.
Right, and the pacing's a good point too. Yeah.
Like for an in-person game, I want when they come and we're playing, like, it's going to be the meat of the game, if that makes sense. So whenever we're playing, because I guess for me, in-person is more of is like a big enough event that like, if you're going to be meeting in person and hanging out and playing a game, it needs to be like a meaty sort of you know reasonable reason for putting in all the effort to meet up to play the game. But that's because my normal is online. Yeah. My normal is not in person. So maybe for somebody who's like most of their game is online. I mean, in person, then maybe it's not that different. But I feel like I wouldn't be able to commit and provide a consistent, interesting game that's taking care of all the like nitty gritty and like mechanical and like we're dealing with living in this world type of thing. The immersion of living in like a world in doing a consistent in-person game. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean with that. And like it's weird because as a former military kid, right? Like, been playing D&D since I was 13. It's heartbreaking to start a game, build a group, join a game, and then you got to move, right? And then you got to move before it's over. We didn't have the technology to play online. The campaign just ended, right? Stories just ended. You never found out what happened. It's like a show getting canceled on Netflix or Fox Network. It's just like, oh well, I guess I'll never know what happened. Maybe there'll be a movie someday to fill in the gaps. Maybe we'll all get together for a one-shot someday. But when you're trying to do this, especially I find newer DMs, younger people, right? They want to tell the biggest goddamn story, right? They want to tell the Lord of the Rings Infinity War story or nothing. Do you know what I mean? And so a lot of these newer DMs and these younger DMs, they'll be like, okay, I got a group together. We're going to play in person. I got all the stuff. And like the story I'm going to tell, we're going to be telling this story for the rest of our lives. It's the greatest story I've ever told ever. And like they've got like 500 pages of notes, and they painted all the miniatures for the final battle, even though that's 10 years away. And it's like the magnum opus of their life. And then 2 of the people get married and have a baby and they can't play anymore. Or 2 of the people in their group break up and they hate each other so much that they're not a part of the group anymore. Or any number of things go wrong and the group falls apart and then it's over. Somebody has to move to a new city for a job. Now you got one person who's an iPad at the table and everybody else is a person at the table. On and on and on and on and on. You hear about these groups, these stories online where like, this DM has been running the same game for the same group for over 30 years. Okay, so the reason they made a story about it is because it never happens. Okay, anytime you see a news story, guys, it's because it never fucking happens, or they wouldn't have made a news story about it. That's not going to be you. You're not going to be the guy that runs a 30-year long game. I'm telling you right now, that's not going to happen. So like what you're saying, Dom, is honestly, if I were to go back to running in-person games, I would definitely go with the Mike Merles approach. And so the Mike Merles approach is you do everything that doesn't matter in between sessions. You do everything that doesn't matter, like repairing equipment, buying new equipment, traveling to the next place, investigating rumors. You do all of that on your Discord, right? You do all of that somewhere else. When you show up at the table, it's go time. It's always go time, right? It's not always combat go time, but it's always go time, right? It's always, all right, we're at the princess's ball. We're all undercover. It's a roleplay session tonight. Let's go. Or, hey, you know, the princess ball fell apart. The princess was a dragon. She's killing everybody. We're going to fight the princess dragon. It's go time, right? It's never like, thanks for driving 45 minutes to my house. Fantasy shopping time. No, that's not going to cut it. If I drove 45 minutes to your fucking house and you want me to do fantasy shop, we're done. We're done. We're not friends anymore. Like, and that's just a symptom of the age that we're in, right? Is like we don't have a lot of free time anymore. Yeah.
And I'll say, like, you know, those things that are part of the TTRPG that you do that, I actually, you know, playing online, like, I enjoy doing some of those. I enjoy having a fantasy shopping episode every once in a while. I enjoy, like, us working together to try and figure out what we're doing with the kingdom, and it's all mechanical and we're not really in character. And just doing like the meta game work of it. I enjoy doing that, but I would not want to do that every single time I go and do it.
But it's easier to do that when you haven't worked all day, then picked up some fast food that gave you an upset stomach, ate it in the car while you're driving 40 minutes to my house. You know that you're going to have to drive 40 minutes back to your house when it's over. And then you don't even know if we're going to have a session because there's two people in the group that are so inconsistent. You might have gone all the way to my house, eat a shitty dinner, and then we end up having to cancel the game because two people just no call, no showed on us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a terrible experience playing in person, especially post-pandemic, because people just don't seem to care anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there used to be a certain amount of, like, pride you took in getting together and, like, you know, like, showing up. You know what I mean? And now it's kind of like, why didn't we just play online? Even my Kingdom Death group, we put in a year and a half, and we decided, like, this campaign is the pits, right? We were playing this thing called the Gambler's Chest, and it's just terrible. And, you know, it was the analogy, right? You swam halfway across the ocean. We made it halfway through the campaign. Do we put in another year and a half of our lives to make it to the other side of the ocean? Or do we just get in a boat and leave, right? It's not about swimming back to the beginning. We don't have to do that. We just get in a boat and we leave. And so we did, but when we made that decision, there was a moment where the four of us were like, why are we even meeting up in person? Why don't we just play online? They got a tabletop simulator for this. Why don't we just play online? You know, and I felt terrible even thinking about it, because like the whole point of this is for us to be in the presence of each other. Do you know what I'm saying? We've been friends for like a decade. We want to continue to have that friendship that can't be matched online. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's but the temptations are there. You know, Kingdom Death has its own tabletop. It's
temptations of convenience,
and it poisons your mind if you let it. You know what I mean? It does poison your mind if you let it. And so I do think that when people get together to play in person nowadays, we always say communication is so important, right? You know, expectations of your group, what the group's after, blah, blah, blah. I think more than an online game, if you have the balls to run an in-person game, like a long-term or mid-term in-person game, you have gotta, like, just meet each other at that table before the campaign starts, and everyone needs to know what those expectations are. And I'm talking like attendance, like expectations. I'm talking about how many times you can miss a game before we just got to ask you to leave, even if we've been friends since kindergarten. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you really, because it's just disrespectful to everyone involved. You know what I mean? Like it really is. Like if you treat the hobby the same way that you would treat a sport, right? Like
Mhm.
If you stop coming halfway through the season, we're gonna lose, right? Because we're a team. So if you just like sign up for this game because you think it would be fun to be able to eat beer and pretzels and hang out, every Wednesday night, okay, but like if that's the only reason you're joining, I still want you to show up. You know what I mean? I want you to eat your beer and pretzels all the way to the end of the campaign. Do you know what I mean? Like I need to know that if you're joining this game, you're serious about the game. You know what I mean? About the whole package, right? About the whole package. If you just wanted to hang out and play Mario Kart every Wednesday, maybe just tell us like, hey guys, I don't really feel like playing a D&D game every Wednesday for the next year and a half. Could we just hang out every Wednesday and play different video games? That people are going to appreciate that honesty a lot more than you lying and saying like, yeah, I don't mind playing D&D, but you don't want to, and you don't want to drive over to your friend's house every Wednesday, and you don't want to have cat allergies because your friend got a cat and didn't tell you, and like just there's all these things that happen in a real life game that you don't have to worry about online, that the communication is maybe like the make or break more than an online game. Yeah. Man. So what I'm doing to try to make things a little bit more interesting. Somebody, Dice Knights said, I love running games in person, but I don't think I'd ever want to run Pathfinder 2e in person. I think it would be a miserable experience for me after getting so used to Foundry holding my hand. Okay.
Honestly, like going through the beginner box with a bunch of people who were new, it was so good. It was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I actually think, I know Rules Doors says this all the time that it seems like Pathfinder is easier to teach than D&D. I actually there's a few of the people there. Actually, I did play with them a couple years back on Foundry around when like right as soon as the pandemic happened. We tried to play a game online, and we actually did a little bit of Icefire Peak online in D&D, and it was a lot. I would say they had a much easier time learning Pathfinder than they did when I was trying to teach them D&D, because it was just simple. I just said
if they don't already know D&D.
Yes,
100%.
And that's why they did not know.
So growing up in Italy, right? I came back to America, and none of the schools taught Italian, right? They taught Spanish. You got to have a second language, Spanish. Here's the problem. If you're not good at languages and you already know Italian and you try to learn Spanish, they're almost the same, but they're definitely not the same. That's the feeling of like already knowing how to play 5th edition D&D and then trying to learn Pathfinder, right? Because you've learned a very convoluted and poorly designed system, and now you're being told, well, this is the same system but a little bit more organized, and then there's going to be wires constantly crossing in your brain of like, well, where did the bonus action go? Well, we don't have any bonus actions in Pathfinder. You just have 3 actions. And it's like, well, can I use the 3 actions to move 3 times? Yes, like literally you have three actions you could buy from the action store, whatever you want. Whatever you want from the action store, you could buy it. Unless it has Flourish, then you can only buy it once, right? It's like, it's pretty basic. But over in D&D, it's like, well, I have 7 bonus actions. Can I just cash in my movement for bonus action? No. Can I cash in my action for bonus action? No. And it's like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. And it's like, yeah. So like, I do think you're right. I do think it's a lot easier to teach it to new people.
So, and then running it, being the GM for that, like, because as long as you have the stuff like sort of written down, I would say, there's a lot of sort of math that happens in there. But if you have, usually if you look at a monster stat block, like that's written, they usually put their maps all next to their attack. So like, I just have to roll d20 and add each one of those numbers, and maybe there's something going on, and I take away 1 or 2 off of it. But it's always just, I never have to like, it's not like I gotta roll like a d4 and then like, then we gotta see what the number is and then add it to this other number that's a d6 or something like that. A lot of times it's just adding the number that's on the sheet to the d20 roll, and then maybe going up or down 1 or 2. And so it's been very, very easy. We had like we were doing the beginner box. They had like the little map there. We were moving the minis around, and everybody can only move 5 spaces. 5 squares, and people are a lot easier to see 5 than it is to see 6, sadly. Strangely enough, like it's a lot easier for somebody to see like, okay, this is 5 squares away. And then somebody was playing an elf, and they kept on struggling to see, can I go this extra thing, because they had the 30 feet. So I think it is. I feel like it's actually pretty easy to run. It seems like there's a lot of math going on, but once you have the number written down, at the end of the day, you're just adding one number and then going up and down by 1 or 2, because there's no bonuses. I'm gonna
show off right now the most powerful face-to-face tool for TTRPGs. It's called Post-it notes. Like literally, that's it. Give everybody at the table their own color of Post-it notes. Give everybody a Sharpie. It's so easy, right? What are my modifiers? I'm literally writing them on a little Post-it note, putting it right next to my miniature on the table, right next to my character sheet, so I can keep track of it. It's like that easy. And it's that cheap, right? You just steal them from the office cabinet at work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's basically free. Don't have an office thing at work? Go into somebody else's office and steal it. It's fine. No one will notice. But if you do want to spend some money, they have these things. They're called status rings. I have, I think, this set right here, but like you can get them made for Pathfinder. Pathfinder and D&D have a lot of like overlap in their status effects. Throwing these rings down on a mini, very easy way to keep track of what status effects they have. Like it's super easy.
Oh, I mean, yeah, those are really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I have these that I use. Before we had these, we used the rings off of soda bottles. So we would collect all of the rings off of soda bottles. You know, the plastic tops. They have a little ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so red ring means the miniature's bloodied, and so on and so forth, right? And so we had a color coding system where if I saw like a red ring on a miniature, we knew that that miniature was at half health. And then if the miniature had a green ring on it, we knew that that miniature was poisoned, and so on and so forth. So like, there's a ton of ways to like track this stuff and keep it easy, but nothing beats like Post-it note, because in a long form game like Pathfinder, you think, oh, how am I going to track all these bonuses? Well, you're only tracking 3 bonuses: item, status, and circumstance. So like, if you know what your item bonuses are, they're probably already calculated on your sheet. But you could make yourself a Post-it note that says axe, and then you could put your 3 attack modifiers, you know, +5, you know, +10, +5, +0. You know what I mean? It's like you could do these things to make it easier for yourself. And the DM, it's the same way. But I will say this for the DM. When you're running a game in person, it don't hurt to have that laptop and have a Foundry world open and then use that to access all your stuff. Like, it really doesn't hurt. It really doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll use it to just roll the dice. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a dragon, you know, if it's like it's a dragon attack, and like I don't feel like gathering up all the dice for the breath weapon, a pity, honestly, because it's nothing more fun than rolling all them dice. But like, you could just be using it to roll in addition to everything else, like if you wanted to. But I use it to keep track of the monster stats, because how else am I going to keep track of the monster stats? I'd have to print out the monster stat sheet, have a bunch of papers in front of me. Or I could have a Foundry world dedicated just to me running a game, and I've got all the monsters open. I can see all the monster stats there. Super easy. All right, well, how do you handle initiative? Well, you got these Post-it notes, right? You fold them in half, you write the names of the shit, you put them on top of your GM screen, you're done. Boom, you got the initiative tracker. You pick them up and you move them as the initiative changes. Post-it notes. I'm telling you, it's that simple. What about miniatures? I don't have any, so check this out. Post-it notes. Hey, you make little paper dolls out of them. They fold them in half. They got the sticky part here, and then that lets you fold it, and then you've got a stand-up. The little miniature stands up, and then you can draw a little picture on it, and then they move around the table. All right.
It's like a little pog.
What if I got a bunch of bad guys? Well, you pick up a big bag of Swedish fish, or if you can handle the sour, you pick up the Sour Patch Kids. Those are the bad guy miniatures. And then, unsanitary, when you kill one, you get to eat it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's honestly, it's not as complicated as it seems. Like, yeah. I think it's more intuitive, but yeah, more than just all the condition tracking and tracking bonuses. It's instant in Foundry, but it all adds up in person, especially for the math impaired. So I will say this. As a person with dyslexia, I have been, I read up on it and I did a lot. And there is math dyslexia apparently. There are people that like they can read and write just fine, but like numbers dance around right in their head, like they can't keep them straight. So when that dragon rolls 18d8, you just shut down. You know what I mean? You're just like, wah, right? I've been doing this since I was a child, so I can look at 18d8 and immediately add it all up for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a thing that I've developed over 30 years of doing this. That's why if I didn't feel like adding up 18d8, I would just roll that attack straight up in my my laptop. And then I would just tell the players, like, yeah, and if they wanted to check my math, I just spin the thing around. There it is. Like, so there are ways to do it. You know what I mean? Like, there are ways to kind of deal with any accessibility impairment that might be holding you back. There are going to be tools to kind of help.
Honestly, if you're GMing it and you have you had those issues with math,
static damage.
You may static damage. Also, you might have a player who's also good at math and likes doing math. So like, maybe just have them, ask them the
roll the dice in their direction.
They would probably, if they're that person, they would probably look at it and add it up and say what it is before you can.
Absolutely, yeah. So there is, but again, it's just a different experience. Like I have, all right. So you know how you have that friend that stutters, and like you're not supposed to like finish their sentence for them. You're supposed to let them finish, right? You're supposed to be respectful of that kind of thing, right? So I've had players where they're like, obviously I'm going to play a wizard and everything I do is going to be a fireball, and they count the pips on their d6s every time. Just 1, 2, 3, and we have to wait for them to count all of the dice, and everyone else at the table looks at the dice on the table. We know that they did 34 points of damage, but we're waiting for them to finish. These are the things that you have to accept are a part of playing in person. Do you know what I mean? Like, the person at the table that is scared to roll the attack and they can't decide which of their 30 d20s they're supposed to use for the attack, like, you don't have to worry about that when you're playing online. But that's a thing that will happen in person. You know what I mean? Like, so these are the idiosyncrasies that a real life game is going to bring that playing online has sort of abolished, right? You have to be kind of prepared for that as well. So I don't know. For our game, since it's Pathfinder, I did order the cards, the critical hits, the critical fumbles, and the hero cards, the latest versions of those cards. So because I like the idea that when you're sitting at the table, you're gonna have them in your greasy little hands and you're gonna be like, ooh, I can't wait to use these cards, right? It's gonna be engaging. We talked about how Daggerheart's gonna be so successful face to face because it's card based. So I went through and sleeved up all those cards, and they were looking at them and passing them around, reading them, like, oh, which one you're playing, and like, it was very, very helpful. They were very, it was very helped them be engaged. Yeah, people love holding things in their hands, right? Nothing makes you feel more purposeful, right, and more engaged than hands in it, right? Putting your hands on stuff. I use these dice right here. I don't know if I have to zoom in some more, but these dice I use for Magic the Gathering, they have modifiers on them from +1 to +6 and from -1 to -6. These are another great thing that you can use on the table to track bonuses and penalties on the fly if you don't have that long-term memory, right? You were here, when we're playing Magic, I have these blank circles that are dry erase, and so I have like tokens that you could write anything you want on them. Let me see, blank. I forget what they're called. Who makes these guys? Infinitokens. Okay, so these guys, Infinitokens, they have blank cards, they have blank tokens, and they have these other weird shapes. They also have blank miniatures too. So like, you can draw anything you want on the miniature. You could draw anything you want on the token. You could draw anything you want on the card, and then change them out for whatever you need. And these are actually very affordable too. And it's very tactile. It's very engaging, and it's very funny, right? Because you're gonna have that one person who just draws dicks all over it, right? So
Yep.
hilarious, hilarious, right? You're gonna have the one
Mhm.
person at the table that's an incredible artist, and they're gonna do like the most amazing art you've ever seen. Everyone's gonna ooh and ah over it, right? They're gonna go full peanut on it, right? So like it's another tool, another tactile tool that really kind of brings them into the game, keeps them in the game. So I really like those. Any opportunity to get cards out on the table. I have the actual Hero deck, so we're gonna be able to do a Hero Fanspiration draw using the actual Hero deck, which will be pretty fun for the games. As far as like maps go, between me and Wes, we have a ton of 3D terrain. We have trees, we have houses, we have dungeon tiles, we have Dwarven Forge.
Mhm.
I don't like using any of that stuff because it's really hard to move your miniature and it's really hard to see your miniature when there's walls everywhere. Yeah, unless you're like standing and like looking down at the table, like you really can't keep track of what's going on. So I'm actually not a huge fan of that. What I am a fan of is the good old-fashioned wet or dry erase gridded map. That's it. You just flop this thing down and you just draw all over it. And people can write notes because you give everybody some markers so they can write down the bonuses that they have to track or the penalties that they have to track. If it's only for a round or two, they can just write it right on the table. The whole table becomes something that you could write on and use to keep track of stuff. Phenomenal. The dry erase, wet erase technology does carry over to other stuff. I backed this Kickstarter, I don't know, a million years ago. Was this last update was 2024, so it was earlier than that. But basically, Moonlight Maps, if you're familiar with them, they made some physical maps. Hold on. There we go. They made some physical maps, and the physical maps have little color form things that you could put down on them to, like, you know, put like trees where there wouldn't be trees, barrels where there wouldn't be barrels. All of it you can draw on, write on, and then the whole thing like folds up and goes in here, and then they have all different locales and stuff like that. So like it's like a step above just a normal dry erase map, but it's not as expensive or as complicated as getting the Dwarven Forge out. When you guys watch Critical Role and they get out the Dwarven Forge, what you are watching is called pornography, okay? It's not real. Like, that's not what a real D&D group is going to be doing. Like, if you are playing in a game where you guys are using Dwarven Forge for, like, every battle and every session, you are playing in a highly scripted, very linear game, and that's completely fine if you're all into it, but, like, that ain't real life. Do you know what I'm saying? That is not real life. But yeah, I have a set of this. I have another set that is just a massive book, and when you open the book, it folds flat, and then there's different maps inside that book that are also dry erase, and you can you can do that. So I have like a lot of different ways to do this. Paizo makes some wet erase, dry erase, foldable maps that are they're different on each side. So there's a lot of cool things you could do with that. Let's see. We talked about the tokens. So GM screen. Everybody knows about the GM screen, but what people don't ever think about is the player screen. So the Paizo Pathfinder starter boxes contain cheat cards for the players. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
This is an incredible resource. So I have always done this since 2nd edition. I will do, this is three pieces of paper, which is a travesty, but I'll do like 2 pieces of paper, front and back, as much information as I can fit on the front and back of a piece of paper, and I will give that to the players, right? And if I'm really thinking about it, I laminate it so they can dry erase, wet erase that too, or whatever. But like, that's really helpful because they're not going to be able to go down to their World of Warcraft hotbar and bring up the action macro, right? They don't have the action macro in person. You could have the action macro by giving them a piece of paper that has everything that they would get from the action macro on it, front and back. It just reminds them of what they're doing, you know? So like, so there's a lot of ways to like make the game engaging and make the game trackable, right? without reliance on the technology. But this is all big talk. I haven't had to run a game in person in a while, so I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely was helpful having the little cards that come with the beginner box when I was teaching and playing the beginner box with my coworkers.
Oh man, any board game at all that provides like a tool like that, tremendous. When I used to do work for Cool Mini or Not, and I used to be more into miniature painting and board games and stuff like that, I had an account under a different name, not CRASHDOM, on BoardGameGeeks.com, and I would actually use my Photoshop skills to make player aids for my favorite board games. So I would make like a handout, double-sided handout, for every board game that I liked. So when you sat down to play, even if you kind of zoned out when your friend was reading the 40 pages of rules to you, you at least had that talisman in front of you that you could you could see like, oh, this is the game right here. I'm holding the game. So like I do think that that's a really important thing to have at the table for any kind of game that you're playing like that. But yeah. Whew. The macro paper feels like the human computer in the 3-body problem. Macro paper? I wish it was... I don't know about the macro paper, but I do know that I got isometric grid paper once from a Kickstarter, and I did use it to basically run the Deku tree as like a dungeon for a in-person ttrpg game, and it was very cool. Because since it was isometric grid, we were able to create like the illusion of 3D space on a 2D map, which was very exciting. There are also, if you are real serious about playing in person, you could do flight stands.
Yeah.
And basically these flight stands are pretty fucking cool. They come in all different flavors. Some of them actually have measurements on them. So you can kind of mark like what measurement they have. Some of them actually elevator up and down with your miniature to show like the height that they're at.
Oh wow.
Yeah, man, it's real nice. It's real. Listen, playing in person, you could put in the same amount of work that you put into making like a badass levels map to build like a 3D dollhouse in real life. Like, you know, I had an airship battle years ago where we actually made the boat out of like a cereal box, and then it had a balloon, and the balloon had like helium in it, and the airship was actually floating, and we had like the miniatures like in the airship and stuff.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I mean, you can go pretty hard with this stuff, but like I said earlier, if you're doing that, it's probably for a set piece battle, a scripted encounter, something like that. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to reach into your back pocket and just whip out an incredible 3D terrain piece that's the perfect thing for what you need. And then somehow you also have room to store it, I guess, in your mansion. Yeah, in your... yeah, because part of what makes Dwarven Forge somewhat affordable is that it's modular, so you can't really leave the sets all set up as specific locations unless you're phenomenally wealthy or sponsored by Dwarven Forge.
Yeah.
Which Steven, the founder of Dwarven Forge, one of the best people in the whole world. Again, because he used to work with the miniature industry and paint and all that stuff. He's an amazing guy, absolutely amazing guy. He deserves all the success that he has, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a toy. That's a toy of the rich. And when the Critical Role kids busted out, I get so frustrated because I feel like people are like, "That's gonna be me. I'm gonna do that." It's like, no, don't. It's not gonna be you.
Yeah.
Please don't think that's gonna be you. I am Mr. V understands the assignment. Solution: have a lot of money. Yep, pretty much.
In person, yep.
Yeah. In-person gaming is only enhanced by having a lot of money. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very
money and time.
And time and good venue. I was very fortunate as a kid. I posted an ad when I moved from California to Texas. I was like, I gotta find a new D&D group, and I posted an ad at the local game store, a piece of paper ad at the local game store. I lived the legend, okay? And I got a call from a guy who was my age, which was incredible. and he had a brother who was 1 year younger, but in the same grade because he's super smart. Anyways, we got together and like formed a group. And it turned out that these two brothers had a father who was an Eastern Orthodox priest. Just bear with me here. And they lived in the priest housing. Okay. And apparently in this religion, Eastern Orthodoxy, everybody except the bishops is supposed to get married. And so where do I go with this? They had a pool, and they had a pool house, and they had all this like really nice stuff for the church. But like the people of the church like never used it, so like we would just every weekend we would just get to play D&D in this pool house, with like no adults around, no grown-ups, so we could be as loud as we wanted, as inappropriate as we wanted. If the weather was nice, we could take breaks to go swimming. There was a dedicated landline just for that, the pool house, so we would call the local pizza place Papa John's. We had a fake account under Damien. And then since we would order every week, they'd be like,
Damien.
yeah, they'd be like, Mr. Damien, is it going to be the usual? And it's like, yes, I would like my 3 quadruple cheese pizzas, please. Yeah. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was a good time. I've been very fortunate to have some very fantastic in-person, face-to-face groups. Went on some amazing adventures with these people, and you know, we got to play in some pretty great venues too. So yeah, I do remember as I answered an ad and joined a game, and I got to the game and they did full catering for the game, and I was like, oh dang, okay, this is nice. I mean, yeah, full catering for the game. Okay. So that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool. So you never know what you're gonna get. You know what I mean? With like an in-person game. More so obviously than online, because you're basically throwing like group Tinder into the mix, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's throwing group Tinder in there. You don't know if you're going to show up and it's a husband and wife DM team, and after the session they're like, yeah, we were really digging your vibe across the table, you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't happen when you're online, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't happen when you're online.
Yeah.
Gotta watch out.
I mean, most of the horror stories I hear about are in-person games. So
yeah, in-person's, it hits different in all the good ways and all the bad ways. Bad ways. All right, well, we're getting close to time. I'm excited about running game online. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, like, you know, if your group is having fun, you're doing it. You know?
Oh man. Okay. All right. The classic answer. I guess my closing would be, all the time we talk about on this channel, on this podcast, in our Discord community, that communication and setting and maintaining expectations is the absolute most important part and key to success of running TTRPGs and playing TTRPGs. I am going to say that it is 100 times more important for in-person games. 100 times more important. There's so many more variables, so many more factors, so many more things that could go wrong, that you need to be aware of. Safety concerns. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. And so for anyone out there that is in a group that meets 1, 2, 3, 4 times a month in person, you're incredible. I don't know how you do it. Yeah, honestly, mad respect. So, yeah. All right. Well, we're not going to have a podcast next week because we're going to be hanging out in person, probably watching Fantastic Four right about this time next week. We're going to be sitting down and watch Fantastic Four. So I hope everybody out there has a good time. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll talk about the in-person games that we played and, you know, what's coming up towards the end of the summer and entering into the fall.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.